All right, guys, today we're going to be making some mac and cheese. We're going to start off with a lobster mac and cheese. We're going to do a filet mignon and blue cheese mac and cheese. And then we're going to cap it off with a flaming hot chicken mac and cheese. Tuck in, we're in for a long one. All right, so the first thing that we're going to do for our mac and cheese is we're going to build a roux. A roux is just a fancy way of saying butter with flour cooked into it. So we're going to melt some butter. As soon as we get it melted, we're going to add in some flour. Now the key to this is to do it low and slow. If you burn the butter, it's going to ruin it completely and you're going to have to start over. Don't do that. Just go low, slow, mix in your flour very slowly, and then we're going to wait and kind of get it nice and toasty. So we're just going to melt the butter now, and then we're going to slowly mix in a cup of flour with our stick of butter and build our roux. So what we're going to do next is we're going to bring half a gallon of whole milk to a low simmer, and then we're going to remove it from heat. And then once our roux is done, we're going to add in the warm milk into the roux so that way it mixes well without it getting clumpy. It's a lot of milk, dude. Chunky. So now that our butter's melted, we're going to start slowly mixing in our flour to build our roux. So we're going to do like an eighth of it at a time. So we're just going to mix in a little bit, give that a stir. And the reason why we do this is we don't want it to get like super clumpy on us. If you try and dump it in all at once, it's going to cool down the butter too much and it'll get clumpy and you won't actually be able to build a good solid roux. Add in some more. And eventually you're going to get like this butter flour paste. And once you start getting into that paste territory, we're going to cook it until it gets nice and toasty. Remember I said I didn't want it to get lumpy?
Yeah, got lumpy.
Got fucking lumpy.
Why'd that happen?
I done fucked up, Bob. So we've got our roux that's gotten nice and toasty brown. So we're ready to go on that guy. Our milk has come to a simmer, so we've got some bubbles there. Bubbles are awesome. Now we're going to slowly, and by slowly I mean pretty much all at once, mix the milk into the roux. We're just going to dump her on in there. Try not to burn ourselves to death. Yum, 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 yum. All right, then we're just going to keep that whisking. Keep on whisking on that. So when you add in like warm milk into a roux, and you whisk it together, it becomes what's called a bechamel. Now a bechamel is like the base for a lot of different kinds of sauces. Whether it's like, in our case, macaroni and cheese, or it's an Alfredo, or basically any white sauce. The root base of that is a bechamel. So we're getting this like nice like light toasty brown color to our bechamel, so it's getting like the flour and the butter are really starting to richen up and it's coming into the milk. So now, once we get it kind of to a light simmer, we're gonna start slowly mixing in a shit ton of cheddar cheese. So we're making more mac and cheese than normal people should consume. So we're gonna be mixing in 8 cups of cheddar cheese. Rule of thumb, same amount of cheese as you use milk. Kranz was kind enough to shred about a zillion cups of cheddar cheese for us, so we're gonna start mixing that in, and just like a handful at a time. The reason why is if you put it in all at once, it's gonna lower the temperature too much, and then when you bring it back up to temperature, it's gonna melt all funny, and you don't wanna do that. So just little bits at a time, about a handful or two, and then give it a stir, make sure that incorporates, and then a handful or two again. Melty, 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 melty.
There's not a pack in that.
There's no box like with this cheese that you have to open up?
Yeah, this is what they did in the factory. They made the roux for me.
Yeah, they did actually in the factory. They combined all the proper chemicals. So the reason why we're making like so much of this is, again, we're gonna separate into like the 3 separate mac and cheeses. And it's still gonna be like fairly liquidy, right? You see how it's still like super liquidy?
Yeah.
But you keep like the same amount, like cheese and milk. And then like the pasta that we cooked, you only cook it to like 65% of what it's supposed to be. So it says 10 minutes, you cook it for 6.5 minutes. The pasta, when you go to bake it in the oven, is gonna absorb the liquid that's left over in this, and it's gonna turn that cheese sauce into like super thick, yummy, awesome, sexy cheese sauce.
Gotcha.
All right, so the first mac and cheese that we're gonna get rocking and rolling is gonna be our lobster mac and cheese. So we've got our base, like yellow sauce, our cheese sauce ready to go. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna church it up a bit, all right? So we're gonna add in a couple different things. We're gonna heat up some olive oil in a pan. Then we're gonna come in with a little bit of diced celery, a little bit of minced shallots. So we've got our celery and our shallots, and they've kind of cooked down. Our shallots are starting to transluce a little bit. Our celery's starting to transluce a little bit. We're gonna go ahead and add in our lobster. So this was 1 lobster tail and the 2 claws from like a 1.5 pound lobster. In you go. So once we get the lobster up to temperature, so what we're gonna do is mix it in with these guys and sort of bring it up to temp a bit. We're gonna come in with some of our cheese sauce, and it's just gonna come right in on the top. Mm-hmm. You can always add more, but let's just make sure we're incorporating as we go. God damn, it smells good. All right, and then for our lobster mac and cheese, for our accent cheese, so cheddar is gonna be like the base. For our accent cheese, we're gonna be using Gruyere, which is a nice like salty cheese. Really, really good, goes well with seafood, I love it. So we're gonna mix in a bunch of that and let that get all melty in there. We're gonna add in a little bit more of the cheese sauce. Thank you, GoPro. And we're gonna bring this up to a low simmer. And then we're gonna pour it over our 3/4 cooked pasta. So, pasta, what's up?
Just so you know, I can't see it.
Okay. So this is pasta that we've cooked like 3/4 of the way that we needed to. 3/4 of the way that we needed to. And then we're gonna mix in our cheese sauce into it that we have with our lobster, shallots, and celery. Almost forgot what that last one was. Oh my goodness. GoPro's doing a thing. Give it a quick stir to make sure it kind of gets incorporated. And then this guy is gonna go in the oven. All of them are gonna end up going in the oven for about 20 minutes at like 325. Just to finish the cooking process on everything and thicken up the sauce a bit. Also, like at the last 5 minutes, we're gonna take the rest of our Gruyere and we're gonna sprinkle it on the top. It's gonna be awesome. All right, so for our next one, we're gonna do filet tips with some mushrooms and a couple more shallots. So we have our filet, a little bit of olive oil, salt, and pepper. Ooh, look at it go! So we've got filet tips, olive oil, salt, and pepper, and a little bit of Worcestershire? Wasted sister sauce. So we're just gonna sear the outside of these guys real quick. So we're coming in really hot, and then as they kind of cook off a little bit, as soon as they brown on like one side, we're gonna hit it with a little bit of cremini mushrooms and some shallots, and let those kind of reduce down in there. And then our accent cheese for this one is going to be blue cheese. We're gonna mix in half a cup in with the filet tips and our cheese sauce, and then the rest is gonna go on top of the macaroons. All right, so we just dropped in the onions. We're also gonna drop in some shallots, and it's just one shallot that we've grated on like a box grater, just to really break it down nice and fine. We want it to disappear in there, provide flavor, but not like consistency. This alone would be fucking bomb. Like if you just had this without the macaroni and cheese, I would eat the shit out of this. So now we're gonna add in the same amount of cheese sauce that we did with our lobster. Now I know we have more beef, but it's okay. We're gonna do the same thing. Now we're gonna come in with like a half a cup of blue cheese, and we're gonna mix that in and let it get melty. We're gonna save the other half to crumble over the top when it's like in the last 5-10 minutes of the oven. Food porn. Food porn. Food porn.
You're saying food porn?
Food porn. Like pornography. Now this guy is just about ready for the oven, and it's gonna go in again at the same time as the lobster. 350. About 20 minutes. All right, so for the last mac and cheese, we're gonna be doing chicken, and we're gonna have a secret ingredient. Our secret ingredient is going to be crushed flaming hot Cheetos. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna bread the flaming hot Cheetos. We're gonna bread the chicken in flaming hot Cheeto dust, and then we're gonna sear it in some butter real quick, get it like 3/4 of the way cooked, mix in our sauce, and then put it over the pasta, bake it for the last 20 minutes so it finishes cooking. You ever had flaming hot chicken?
I've never had a flaming hot Cheeto, to be honest with you. I don't like it.
You know what? They're good. But they're not all like they're cracked up to be, you know? Some people go straight nanners over them. I know I'm gonna catch flack on this in the comments, but...
Flaming hot Cheetos are good.
He didn't say they weren't good, dummy.
All right, so now that we've got our chicken pretty well cooked, we're gonna go ahead and add it into the rest of our cheese sauce, and then we're gonna get it into our pasta. We went with the big one for the flaming hot, so we're gonna do a lot of it. So we're gonna go ahead and mix that in. Try not to kill myself. So we're gonna take our pink goo, and we're gonna drop it into our pasta. Coming in hot. Food porn.
Kind of looks like vodka pasta.
Yeah, vodka penne. All right, so we're just gonna give this a quick mix, get it all incorporated, let the pasta kind of mix in with the sauce, and then all three of these guys are now gonna go into the oven for about 25-30 minutes. Keep an eye on them. Don't let them get too thick, but they're gonna thicken up quite a bit in the oven. About 5 minutes before you pull them out, we're gonna take them out, we're gonna put on our accent cheeses onto each one. So again, the lobster is gonna get the Gruyere, the filet tips is gonna get the blue cheese, and the chicken is gonna get more flaming hot Cheetos.
That's an action.
All right, so our mac and cheeses are now complete. I hope you guys had a good time watching this video. I hope you enjoyed some of the things that we did. We're gonna go through some taste testing and see how it turns out.
What do you think is going to be the best one, Crayons?
I think for me, it's probably going to be the filet and the blue cheese, but I don't know.
What's the worst one going to be?
The lobster one looks pretty good. This one looks really interesting. I'm anxious to see what it tastes like.
Interesting means sucks.
Yeah, that's like PC for shitty. I'm going to start with the worst one.
It's not bad. It's not bad, but it's not good. I don't know how I feel about that.
Oh, now I'm feeling the heat from this. I didn't
Really?
taste it at first.
Yeah,
Now I'm getting the heat.
I like this one.
Lobster one.
Yeah.
That's the best one.
Really?
Yep.
Okay.
My least favorite's hot Cheeto.
Yeah, the hot Cheeto is
And
probably...
that was like the most requested one.
All right, that's a wrap.
Is that a wrap?
Hashtag John likes beers.
For me personally, this is a little rich.
Yeah, me too.
very rich. I think could do without the blue cheese on
Yeah.
top.
the extra blue cheese on top?
Yeah.
Misses and ma'ams,
Yes.
we're trying to record some videos over here.
Okay.
Simmer down, please. Give it to me, baby. Wow, wow. I'm over here trying to be a professional.
A metric shit ton?
A metric shit ton. That's exactly how much. A metric shit ton.
We send a photo to our trainer of all 3 mac and cheeses that we're having.
Yeah, pretty dope. Lit. Fire AF. All right, guys. So today we're gonna be making mac and cheese. Okay. Did I just Katie that? Okay. I'm being a little puss. All right, I'll stop being such. Dude, look at this. It's all clumps, dog. Quiet, Turbs. You're ruining everything. So this is pasta.